welcome. I'm Catherine Kostreva, a co-founder of Meritorious, and I'm thrilled to be building this engaging platform where members can leverage the bonds of service for business connections and professional growth while supporting their communities. Thank you for joining us for a Meritorious talk with Beau Higgins, Senior Manager, Military Affairs for Amazon. As senior manager, Beau is a leader of an organization that is tasked with elevating the cross-company strategic impact inside and outside of the company of the considerable investment Amazon has made in the U.S. military veteran community. The military affairs team is responsible for creating scalable veteran programs, developing policies and strategic planning for military recruiting and outreach efforts, and focusing on hiring, developing, and retaining the very best and brightest military talent available for positions within Amazon. Beau leads all talent acquisition efforts for the team, which includes efforts on developing Amazon's programs to increase hiring of veterans, military spouses, wounded warriors, and to engage these individuals with multiple military support organizations to share best practices on talent acquisition and to educate transitioning veterans on Amazon opportunities and culture. Prior to joining Amazon in 2016, Beau served for 25 years as an intelligence officer with the Marine Corps. This included deployments to Somalia, Bosnia, 3 tours to Iraq, and 3 tours to Afghanistan. He had the privilege to command 1st Reconnaissance Battalion and Headquarters Battalion, 2nd Marine Division. Following his retirement in 2014, he ran operations for a fiber optic cable assembler for 2 years. Beau has a master's in business administration from George Mason University and a master's in military strategy from the Air War College. His personal awards include the Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal with 1 Gold Star, and the Combat Action Ribbon. Col Higgins was chosen as the Marine Corps Intelligence Officer of the Year in 2002 and received the Marine Corps Award for Intelligence Writing in 2006. Please join me in welcoming Beau Higgins. Hi, Beau. How are you today?
Great to be here today and doing great down here in Tampa, Florida, where it's cold for us in Florida. It's in the 50s. We're complaining when you're from Florida, but doing great. We had a Super Bowl in town this week, so people are going a little crazy here in Tampa, but doing well. Thanks to and really excited to be here.
So, Beau, why don't we start with you telling us a bit about your military career and what it taught you?
Yeah, so as you noted, I had 25 years in the Marine Corps and got to serve overseas, a good bit of that, which I personally loved, although my mother and my wife didn't always enjoy me being gone so much. But being in the Marine Corps was fantastic. It was an experience where, you learned on the job every day and you learned about leadership, right? I talk about the military really providing anyone what I call as a master's degree in leadership, because you were, at different phases in your career. As a junior officer, you are, leading, groups of some folks are even older than you, younger than you, older than you, from backgrounds and different diverse backgrounds from all over the country, So the ability to find ways to motivate different people and from different backgrounds, all to focus on the same mission, is something that I think I take today, as I have a team at Amazon that has come from different backgrounds and different places. And I think the other thing that the Marine Corps teaches you is that you need to be able to operate in chaos, right? There's no rule book when you're in combat. There's no rule book a lot of times for some of the operations that we do in the military. So the ability to kind of think on your own, think quickly, to adapt to your situation is something that has not only helped me in the Marine Corps, but certainly has provided me, the experience I need to translate that skill from the military into what I do now at Amazon.
So we're going to go to our next question, and this leads to what sort of you just shared with us. What moment made you decide that post-military you wanted to continue helping other veterans transition successfully?
I don't know if it was one thing necessarily, but certainly, I had a job when I first came out of the Marine Corps where I was working for a company that manufactured and installed fiber optic cable. And it was a great first job, and I enjoyed it, and I learned a ton, but I also felt like I was missing something. I didn't know what that was, but what I call it in kind of general terms is a give back factor. So when you're in the military, you don't necessarily appreciate, but I mean, every day you are in a place where you are serving your country and you're giving back in that capacity. You can't take it for granted, but you are giving back and you're representing your country overseas or in the United States. You know, you're doing that every day. And I missed that. I missed that component of my life in the Marine Corps, of that give back factor. After 2 years at Custom Cable, I was looking for an opportunity where I, might have an opportunity to give back again. And that's what kind of drew me to the opportunity at Amazon, to find a place where I could, have a role or have an opportunity to give back in this capacity, giving back to those veterans that are transitioning, because transition is a scary time. People are, it is very scary to leave what you've been doing for 5, 10, sometimes 30 years in the military to go into the civilian world. So the opportunity to give back was really what, again, I think I was missing, and what I found again by moving to this role at Amazon.
And so let's kind of go in that direction with Amazon. Now, Amazon did not always have this hugely robust program. So I'd love for you to detail, Beau, how did Amazon go about building its veteran hiring program during its infancy?
Well, that's a great question. It really, for any company that wants to build and grow a veteran hiring program, and military spouse hiring for that matter, you have to have buy-in from the top. And in Amazon's case, that was very true. Amazon had a program that focused on hiring veterans for quite some time, but it was really ad hoc, kind of a scrappy, off the side of a desk operation where they're hiring a handful of veterans every year. And what really was the impetus for us to grow to what we are today was Jeff Bezos himself went to the White House back in 2016 under the Obama administration, and as part of the Joining Forces Agreement, or Joining Forces Pledge, he pledged to hire 25,000 veterans and military spouses over a 5-year period. And that pledge will come due, if you will, in May of this year. And in reality, we now have over 50,000 veterans over at Amazon. We crushed that pledge. But again, that investment and that show of importance by the leadership of Amazon was what enabled us to build the team that we have today. I was hired soon after that pledge was made, and basically was, hey, Jeff Bezos made this pledge. You have some resources. Go out there and deliver on this pledge. So that was 5 years ago, and the team that we have that is focused on veteran hiring, and not only hiring but veteran retention now as well, has grown to where we have over 30 full-time people dedicated to hiring and retaining veterans every day. So again, it starts from the top. You have to have that buy-in from the senior levels, and then you have to get the right team and show you're having success, right? If we had invested in veterans and either the veterans weren't performing well or we weren't hitting our hiring numbers, I think that investment may have tapered off. But once the ball started rolling, it has grown, and our number of veterans have grown every year. Not only have they grown every year, they're having a big impact across the company. That's kind of how it all started. I'm sure 2021 will be even bigger than 2020, which is hard to believe, because that was our biggest growth year ever. But that's just life at Amazon.
Before we jump to our next question, could you give us some tips for getting that buy-in from senior leadership? It's not always easy, especially if the senior leadership does not have a military background, is not really connected to the military community. So do you have any tips for that?
That's a great question and a great challenge, right? I mean, obviously, Jeff Bezos was not a veteran himself. I think you have to find those leaders in your organization, because they're going to be veterans that you hired almost serendipitously, right? I guarantee you, if you look inside any organization, there will be someone is the most senior military representative in the organization. And you can start by doing some small things. I think at the grassroots level, having a celebration for Veterans Day or Memorial Day, and inviting, the CEO to come, inviting senior leaders to come, so they can see that, hey, you know what? We do have a lot more veterans in this organization than maybe we even realize. I think that's part of it, is that not that people are biased against veterans, they just don't even think about it sometimes. And I think a lot of companies don't even maybe realize how many veterans they have there. So most of the time, what I've seen, it really does start at the grassroots level, where, again, inviting and trying to include non-veterans into things you're trying to do in the community or to recognize the veterans that you have within the organization. That's kind of where it starts. You build, an employee resource group where you have volunteer opportunities or some ways to engage in the community. It's a great PR tool, right? I mean, veteran hiring is a win. So if you can highlight the fact that, to your company that, hey, do you know what? We actually have hired, 100 veterans in the local community, and be able to tell that story and tell the stories of the folks that you hire, and getting that publicity is something that is only good for a company. So again, these things can really and truly start at the grassroots level and get them onto the radar of your senior leaders by including them or just getting your public relations folks involved to tell those good news stories are ways that you can get that buy-in if your senior leader is not a veteran.
That's excellent advice, that cross-departmental collaboration and buy-in. All right, so can you detail, you dived into it just a little bit, but could you share with us what you think Amazon has done exceptionally well in the hiring of veterans? And could you perhaps also share areas Amazon hopes to improve or expand upon?
When it comes to what we've done well, I think the key to success is getting commitment and buy-in from the business, or from the company to that veteran hiring, right? And part of that is setting actual goals. What we did initially, back in the early Scrappy days, I was kind of going around almost like hat in hand saying, hey, would you be willing to hire some veterans? Or Amazon Music, Amazon Studios, Amazon Operations, would you be willing to hire some veterans? And they were, but it wasn't very programmatic. So over time, we've been able to build in a pipeline where companies or the different business lines in Amazon, things like AWS operations, our consumer organization, has a dedicated goal of hiring veterans. So building that in as something that they're being held accountable for, the HR leaders are being accountable for, that is really the most critical thing that we've had to drive our success. Is that veteran hiring goals are being looked at in many ways as similar to minority hiring goals or married female hiring goals. That a veteran hiring goal is something that is a goal that our senior leaders are being held accountable to. And as a result, the investment has come to give resources to hit those numbers. That's something we've done well, is get buy-in from senior leaders and commit to veteran hiring as an important part of our overall diversity hiring. Things that we haven't done well, certainly we're not perfect. I know some of the things that I continue to work on are, for example, military spouse hiring. That's an area where we have some room for growth. Entrepreneurship is another area for growth for us that we're hoping to improve on. On the spouse side, I had to, I've learned some lessons, maybe call it the hard way. We always had a desire or a goal to hire more military spouses, but the military spouses have different needs. They need roles that are virtual and portable and can move with their veteran spouse. Again, so being able to adapt to the way we target and focus on military spouses is something we haven't done very well, but we've learned a lot, and I think you're doing better now. Same thing for entrepreneurship. That's an area where I'd like to see more veteran entrepreneurs have opportunities to become sellers on Amazon's platform. It's been a little challenging to find the right ones and kind of match them with Amazon and give them the opportunity to be sellers and kind of highlight our veteran sellers at Amazon. Another area I think we have room for improvement and something that we're looking at targeting for both the spouse and entrepreneurship side to grow in 2021.
What are some standards that every veteran hiring program must have? I don't care if you're a tiny business with no budget, you're a Fortune 500. What are some standards that a veteran hiring program has to have?
It has to have dedicated resources first and foremost, right? So that buy-in from the top, I think, to me is essential because if there's no one that's holding you accountable, if those senior leaders aren't accountable to actually truly focus on bringing veterans in, it won't happen, right? If it's not one of the metrics that you're tracking, if it's not a metric that, at least in Amazon, everything we do is data-based. If it's not a metric that you're being held accountable for, the program may be a great idea, but it won't get much traction. So I think that's the first and probably the most important thing is that buy-in piece. Now, from the perspective of working with the candidates, I think you have to have an ability to translate a military skill set into an Amazon or a corporate skill set, right? And having those, having veteran or military spouse members of the team that can look at a veteran resume and help them to kind of translate that into civilian speak. It doesn't happen all the time, right? And part of that is also what I'm doing as kind of this veteran advocate, where I'm going out to different hiring leaders within Amazon to be able to tell them that, I think this is what happens a lot of times for our hiring managers at Amazon. They look at a veteran resume and it's non-traditional. Their background, they didn't go to Stanford, get an MBA, they didn't work in industry on Wall Street, they didn't work in corporate America. They're coming from the military and their resume is hard for them to understand, right? So you have to kind of sell veterans on what they bring to the table. And what they bring to the table is that ability to function in chaos very well, to be able to look at things and solve problems in a way that other people cannot. And you have to sell that in some ways to those hiring managers. So again, being able to take a non-traditional resume, if you will, get it to a hiring manager and help them to understand the talents and attributes that the veteran has are critical. So any program that you have, the key to them to be successful is going to be how do they take the veterans, again, from the veteran that's working on the team and making it easily understandable to the non-veterans is going to be essential to success. And the one last thing I think that is important if you're going to have a good program is that training piece, right? We have seen that there is a unintentional bias that actually against hiring veterans. There's a belief by many non-veterans that every veteran has PTSD or every veteran is this, rifleman that's been in combat and lives in the mud, and that's all they can do is, shoot guns and blow stuff up, right? So there's a bias out there that you have to overcome. So the education piece of those managers that are bringing in veterans to understand that, actually in the military, I have everything. I have lawyers and I have finance people and I have program managers and they can do everything. And they're not all, combat veterans are great too, but we have a little bit of everything out there. So this education is such a key part of what I do every day to open up the opportunities for those veterans to go into a diversity of jobs is a critical part to me, of any military recruit team.
Now, for the record, every veteran I know likes to shoot guns and blow up things. So I'm just saying that, especially my co-founder, Ryan. So, all right. Now, you already touched on some suggestions to, create these standards for a veteran hiring program. My next question is about implementation. So now you've gotten buy-in from your senior leadership and you have the recruiters and HR staff is all about it. So what about implementation? Like, what do you think are the first steps that a company should take? I think that's different than saying, hey, now, we're going to build a program as opposed to actually building it. So what do you think are some first steps that any organization should take?
Once you have the buy-in and the commitment, then it's really, how you can deliver results. And that can be the hard part, right? So if now you've promised to these hiring managers, bring this awesome talent, how do you find that talent? For us, I think part of that is always going to be finding those partners out there that can help you engage to find veteran talent. We have many partners that we work with very closely. Hiring Our Heroes is one. They're part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They're a great partner. They have basically a database of veteran candidates that they work with at bases all over the country. They also run the Skill Bridge program for transitioning veterans that are in the last 6 months that are able to get out and work at your companies basically as interns. So Hire Heroes is a great partner. Hire Heroes USA is one we work with also that can help with resume support, resume writing, interviewing, and also can help you to find and bring in quality candidates to your program. There's dozens of these type of organizations out there. It depends on what you want to focus on. Do you need vets in technology? You want to find minority veterans or female veterans or wounded warriors. I mean, there's an organization out there for everything to partner with to help you then deliver the results once you have the commitment, to support and get those veterans in the door. From our lens and at Amazon, we're actually hosting virtual webinars every week. Every Thursday, my team and I have about 8 to 10 folks from Amazon, and we talk about the process for joining Amazon. We probably have around 200 to 300 veterans that sign up every Thursday to listen to kind of tips on how to get in the door. And that talks about, starting off figuring out what job you want to pursue, resume tips, interviewing tips, and then being able to talk to individual recruiters. I think a big piece of what you need to be able to provide to those veterans is accessibility for them to answer questions they have, because there are a lot of questions that veterans have. They don't know, they've been in the military for, like I said, sometimes in 20 years. They don't know, they have simple questions that may seem simple to me that's been in the hiring business for 4 years. For them, they don't know where to turn to. And if you can provide them, that real-time feedback, whether on a webinar or in LinkedIn or a phone call, and just being accessible is a key part of that program. So again, it's about finding the right partners. It's about committing on your team to being accessible to those veterans. And if you do those things, once you have the commitment from your leadership, that's how a program becomes successful, in my opinion.
I think we can also, we've been there, done that. And so we can easily forget that these individuals are getting right out of the service. And so questions we're familiar with and answers that we've already answered are brand new to them, may not have even occurred yet. And so I love this recommendation to create a way of that, to create that dialogue. Okay, so we're going to switch over to military spouses. You had mentioned it briefly that they lead sort of like more that portable lifestyle. So the question is, many spouses opt out of the workforce because of conditions unique to that military lifestyle, or oftentimes they maintain roles that are short-term, mobile, and even if it's not their preferred career choice, unfortunately. So you did touch on this, but if you could expound a little further, what does Amazon do to support military spouse careers specifically?
Well, that is, for us, that is a really a growing area, is engaging on military spouses, because underemployment is really the problem you see with military spouses, right? You have these spouses that are amazingly talented with, college degrees and master's degrees in many cases, and because of where they're located, a lot of times, if you're stationed in 29 Palms, California, or Fort Bragg, North Carolina, there may not be a lot of opportunity in many cases for spouses. So the question becomes, how do we create that opportunity? And I think COVID, for all the negatives of COVID, the one thing it has provided is an opportunity for more remote work, right? So, that piece to be able to find jobs that you can meet that spouse where they are, to allow them to work remotely, and has been hugely impactful for our ability to bring more spouses on. And it's a similar process, right? We're going to different businesses and we're talking about the skill sets that spouses may be interested in. The reality as a military spouse, many times, that you may have to, be there with your family when your other spouse who's active duty is deployed. So sometimes it doesn't work that you can go into a building or work a night shift, or work weekends. You have to be there. So, finding jobs that are more flexible, portable, being able to do at home is probably the biggest thing we've done to focus on spouses and improve the ability to hire spouses. Another specific program we've added, something we call internally Project Juno, but what it is if a spouse has a job with Amazon and they're, say, stationed in Washington State, in Seattle at JB, Joint Base Lewis McChord, and their spouse gets orders somewhere else, we have a program where you can actually apply to move with your spouse and follow them, even if your job isn't remote. We will work with you to help you make that happen, right? So that's a dedicated program, an HR program we have that is going to support spouses to help them move if their military spouse moves. We are working on another program that supports spouses, for example, when their active duty spouse comes home from a deployment. to give them extra leave to be able to be there for their spouse and have to take time off. They get actually some, approved, military leave or approved Amazon leave to be there when their spouse comes home. Again, things that maybe seem little, but just shows that we are investing in our spouses and trying to meet them where they are, because they do face a lot of unique challenges. So again, more to be done in that space and more opportunities that we can do, but certainly something that we are very serious about and making a commitment on. I think we have currently working at Amazon almost 10,000 military spouses. So the commitment's real, and it's not going away.
All right. And then I know that Amazon supports wounded warriors. So could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, that's an area where we actually have some room for improvement as well. We have at the kind of a senior Amazon level, we have a program that is focused on just disabled hiring in general. Our wounded warriors are a kind of a subset of that, the overall disabled veteran hiring. I used to have a member of our team named Tim Bomke, who was a wounded warrior himself. He led the program, and he's moved to a new role, so it's been gapped briefly. But it's really similar to what we're doing in other spaces. It's going to those businesses, finding out roles where having someone with disabilities can be successful, and can basically be an advocate for those wounded warriors into roles at Amazon. Not every role is going to be a fit, but that's okay. There are plenty of roles that are going to be a fit for our veterans, for our wounded warrior veterans. And they come in all, there's a wide variety of what wounded warriors are. Is it a PTSD issue? Is it, a sight issue or a hearing issue? Is it a physical disability? And you have to have what we call white glove treatment for our wounded warriors, and we do. So the hiring numbers aren't going to be necessarily, thousands, but that's okay. If we're doing the right thing and making a concerted effort to provide those white glove services to our wounded warriors, to find, accommodations for them to be successful, that's what it's all about. We're doing that every day. We have, I don't know the number we have offhand, but there are a great number of wounded warriors that are working at Amazon and all kind of jobs all over Amazon. So again, it's a space we're committed to. It's a space where we can certainly do more. I think in the tech world in particular, that's a place that lends itself to our wounded warriors that can kind of learn and get trained up as in technical roles if they may have some type of a leg or physical injury where they're wheelchair bound. Those tech roles are ones that are great. And that's one we're focusing on even more, because Amazon is short folks in tech, and we want more veterans in tech, and certainly opening up the aperture for wounded warriors in tech just makes sense for us for a whole host of reasons. So we're all in, we're committed to it. More we can do, but something that we're very passionate about.
Thank you for that. Let's talk culture. What are suggestions and tools that companies can access to create a culture that truly supports and embraces military culture?
That's a great question. In that, I think the thing I like to focus on is that Amazon itself has a unique culture, and every company out there has its own unique culture. USAA is different than Amazon, is different than JP Morgan, is different than Target. They all have their own culture. And Amazon's culture is a little weird. You have dogs in all the buildings running around, and there's just it's a funky young vibe, and it's just an interesting place. It has like startup mentality, although it's this large company. It has its own unique culture. And I don't know that that Amazon necessarily adapts to the veteran culture. It's really you as a veteran have to adapt to Amazon's culture, because in the interview process, we are interviewing for a cultural fit is the reality, right? Not everyone is going to be a good fit at Amazon. That's okay. It doesn't have to be for everyone out there. There's a company for you. It may or may not be Amazon. But I think that culture piece is really about, what is Amazon's culture, and do you align with Amazon's culture? Amazon certainly is very focused on hiring veterans because of what veterans do bring to the table. And I think it can be a great fit from the military into Amazon. But again, I think you do have to adjust a little bit of your you can't come into Amazon and be able to, the idea of like yelling at people and making them do push-ups, or those things that maybe kind of extremes in the military, that's not going to fly at Amazon, right? So you have to adjust your style, your leadership style, to the culture of Amazon. That said, we certainly at Amazon are willing in some ways to meet veterans where they are. We do have our employee resource group, where we are focused on trying to create a community of veterans that can come together and just kind of have support for each other. There's mentoring opportunities within that, opportunities to do community service, and those ways to give back where you still feel connected to your military peers. So there's room for both. There's room for, you have to be kind of all in for Amazon and its culture, but you can also be part of the Amazon Warrior resource group, where you can meet those other veterans that are there and kind of find people that are like you, that have backgrounds with you, and kind of maybe find that support you might need on tough days that we all have in any company to kind of make it through. So I guess that's my take on culture. It kind of goes both ways.
Speaking of culture, can you tell us a little bit about Amazon's military affinity groups? So how does each ERG support and engage its members? How do they connect with the broader community? I believe you have separate ERG groups for veterans and military spouses, if that's correct.
I think we have about a dozen different affinity groups now. So there's, women at Amazon, Black Amazon, Glamazon, which is gay, lesbian Amazon. And then there's veterans at Amazon, or we have our military, our Amazon Warriors group, and then our military spouse group as well. For the ERGs, again, they are very much kind of grassroots type efforts, right? And they're very dependent on the local leaders to kind of own and run their resource groups in the locations they are. Amazon has locations nationwide. Most everyone here on the call, I'm sure, probably has an Amazon fulfillment center or some type of facility near them. We're in most every big city these days. And each one of those local chapters has the flexibility and has some budget to do kind of what's important to them. Because what's important, or the veteran initiatives that are going on in Seattle may be very different than the initiatives that are going on in Washington, D.C. or in Chicago. So we give autonomy in some ways, those local leaders, to get involved in the community and find where they may want to give back in some way, shape, or form. But we also do have some kind of bigger efforts. So again, around Veterans Day, we do plan some nationwide type events where we may have we have a speaker series where we bring in, senior leaders to talk about veteran-focused issues. We have a series where we have opportunities where we kind of have volunteer days for all of our veterans. So again, there's a lot you can do to kind of, at a kind of a national level, to be able to kind of bring all of our veterans together and remember what's important to us as veterans. And then at the local level, to give them the autonomy to do what they want to do. Our spouse groups, it's smaller. The number of spouses isn't as big as our veterans, but there is the month of the military spouse, I believe, is May, and we did several initiatives to focus on spouses in May of last year, and will again this year. So again, it's important for us to recognize the contributions of all of our veterans, all our military spouses, but be able to do it in a way that adapts to where they are, to their locations and their community. Because again, I think one of the biggest things that the resource group is all about is bringing folks together to have that camaraderie, to be able to talk to folks that have been through similar experiences, and then to give back, right? To get out in the community and, whether it's a project to, go to a local food bank or work with a local military support organization for a hiring event, whatever it may be, find these ways to give back. Because that gives those veterans kind of that mojo or that juice to kind of keep at it when you're maybe having a bad day at work. That finding that resource group is a key way to help. In my opinion, I use it almost as a retention tool to keep those veterans around, where they can find their peers that have been there, done that, and find someone to talk to. So we're huge fans of the groups. They continue to grow, and it's something where we invest in, and it's something that has made Amazon stronger for having those. Just as a side note, our Amazon Warrior group is the biggest affinity group at Amazon. So it's very popular, very engaged, and doing great things for the company.
Let's talk Amazon making moves to support the military-connected community beyond hiring. I believe the last time you and I spoke, Beau, there was some really cool things in the works as it pertained to the veteran healthcare sector, maybe. So could you share more on this?
Our bigger Amazon military affairs team is on talent acquisition, but we have three different pillars of the team. So talent acquisition is mine. The second pillar is on workforce development. So that piece is actually somewhat fascinating, at least to me. It's one thing to hire a veteran, but if you don't keep them around, if you don't retain them, that's a problem. So we're investing more and more in making sure we're there to train and mentor our veterans to help them stick around at Amazon. We looked at the data, and what the data showed us for our veteran candidates was that our veterans were leaving faster than their industry hires over the first 2 years of their careers at Amazon. But we also saw that if veterans made it to the 2-year mark, they promoted faster than their industry peers. So obviously it behooved us to invest more in getting our veterans over that 2-year hump where they could make it and then kind of ramp and continue to do well. So we've invested heavily in training for our veterans, in training for our non-veteran managers to do a better job of managing our veterans. We've invested in our mentorship programs. All of these things have considerably moved the needle and kind of lowered our attrition rate for veterans in the last year and a half, and are making a big impact. That's one thing we're doing. It's kind of new. And then the third pillar of our team is called our community engagement pillar, and we're doing a lot there. One is, as you noticed, in the mental health space. That's an area where we believe that technology can be a factor. Technology in a variety of ways. For example, we've worked with the VA to help those severely wounded warriors that have to that are wheelchair bound, using Alexa technology, for example, to help them with their lights and their doors and their bed. So that the investment in technology has been something in a partnership with the VA as specifically is focused on helping out veterans. We've also in the mental health space, again, how do we certainly see, and there is a need for more support for veterans when it comes to mental health. That's another area we're partnering not only with the VA, Rally Point is another company we're working with, and we're also working with VOWS, so through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we pledged that we're part of the Prevent Task Force, which is also focused on mental health. That investment is some dollars in supporting mental health programs, others is technology, and what can we do? Can we be predictive, possibly, through technology of folks that may be having mental health challenges, right? What can we do for as far as Amazon technology to help out with mental health? So that's a continued growth area and one we'll continue to partner with. A third one, and I talked about it a little bit before, is entrepreneurship. I see that as a huge growth opportunity for us at Amazon. How do we get more veterans trained to be able to kind of launch their own businesses? I mean, there are so many amazing veterans and military spouses too that are running businesses out of their homes and from base, and how do we help them kind of take that next step to scale and be able to sell on Amazon and really kind of take off? So again, I think the goal for us is to find more military and military spouse-owned businesses that we can support, help, and assist to help them get to the next level. Those are just a few of the things we're involved in. I know there's a ton more, but this, there's a lot going on, and sometimes even hard for me to keep track of all the great things we're doing in the veteran space.
We're going to change direction a little bit, Beau, because I think this is the perfect segue to a question posed by one of our listeners. So the question is from a member of Meritorious. His name is Kiri Reichbach. He's the founder of Gray Team, a nonprofit based in Boca Raton. And it seems that they have helped hundreds of veterans access health and wellness services, nearly 3,000 services performed in partnership with other nonprofits and foundations. I was doing a little bit of quick recon. And they're working on developing a remote fitness and communication application information for these veterans. Go Carrie, great work. So his question is, does Amazon have any sponsorship programs in place to support nonprofit veteran service organizations to help with the transition process, reduce veteran suicide, etc.?
We don't necessarily have dedicated funds for that. Carrie, I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to connect with you on, opportunities that might exist. It's not like we have a set aside of, $1 million where we're looking to invest in partners. We do have a variety of partners that we work with. They kind of usually start small. And if we see some type of ROI for it, that investment can grow. And a lot of times they'll grow and kind of grow from the military team to actually kind of big Amazon, if you will, beyond the military team. And we have a group called Amazon in the Community that leads big Amazon's investment in things like that. And they have the big dollars. So, we can be the gateway a lot of times if the initiative proves we one that's effective and making an impact. I'm happy to have that conversation or to connect you with Jeremy Valdez, who leads our community engagement efforts, and see where it might lead. So I say all the time, you can't score if you don't shoot, right? So we are at Amazon. One of the things about Amazon is we are always happy and willing to beta test things, try things out, and see what works. If it works, then let's figure it out, let's scale it and grow it. So again, we don't have necessarily a set aside, but happy to have a conversation and see where it leads. And we'd love to talk more on that topic.
We're going to round out with a final question for Beau. How have you managed during this pandemic? Where do you see yourself in the next year? And do you have any new blazers in the pipeline? Because I don't see you wearing one of your famous blazers today. So please, we want to know what's happening with you on a personal note.
I always have a blazer in the background. This is my orange sequin blazer, my UVA colors. It's kind of a new one in the collection. I haven't worn that one too much. So for Amazon in particular, the pandemic, I worked remote before. I've always been remote, so for me, it hasn't been too big of a change. I certainly do miss getting out there, going to bases and being at events and being able to wear more of my jackets, kind of part of my persona. Amazon's still on travel restriction until at least June. From there, your guess is as good as mine. I think the one thing we've learned from the process or being part of the pandemic is that, remote works and remote can be more efficient, right? So instead of me going to a different base every other week for an event, I now do these virtual events every Thursday, and I get 200 or 300 people that are coming to my event just to see Amazon instead of going to a base where I'm sharing, the floor with 50 other companies, right? So, we've learned some good things from COVID as far as being able to engage with veterans, nationwide. Obviously, there's some drawbacks. We all know that. I think mental health is one that's been a challenge. Leadership is a challenge too. I used to be able to get out and see my team in person, at least once a month, go out to Seattle and talk with my team. So we've all had to kind of do our best, and technology has been a big part of us being able to do that. But for the Amazon team, I mean, we on the military team, we've continued to grow. We've hired in record numbers last year. So I think, it was interesting to see when COVID did kind of start impacting a lot of companies as far as their hiring. Not surprisingly, Amazon's hiring actually went up and increased. And we had to figure out how to do that, safely, how to onboard people differently, use technology more, and we've done that, right? So again, I think, the lessons we've learned from COVID have allowed us to even scale in these circumstances, and there's no end in sight for that. So yeah, I look forward to getting back out there on the road and wearing my jackets more and engaging, hopefully see some of y'all out there as well in the summer after June, and hopefully they'll lift those restrictions then. So looking forward to that for sure.
Love the blazer. It's fabulous. This was excellent. Kudos to Amazon, and Beau, you are a bright star in the universe. You've made a huge impact personally and professionally. I am so appreciative of you for sharing a wealth of information and real applicable strategies and techniques that I think our listeners can use to best support our transitioning service members and spouses. And thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time.